So we're going to get started. The first speaker today, I'm very proud and happy to have my friend Dr. Anil Maheshwari come up and be our startup speaker. Anil's presentation is Exercise is Awesome Medicine. And Dr. Maheshwari, we're very fortunate that he's joined the physician community here in Cambridge. He is the lead physician at the Grandview Medical Center, and I know a number of individuals here belong to that center. He's also the chief of family medicine at Cambridge Memorial Hospital. He practiced both in the U.S. and in Canada and has really dedicated himself to reminding people that many diseases are preventable and treatable with lifestyle changes, especially with exercise. He's a very strong proponent of exercise. He also loves social media, and I follow him on both Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. He's got a YouTube account, Pinterest. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm going to ask Anil about that afterwards because maybe I need to join that. LinkedIn. So he really uses various avenues to try to get the message out to people, and he'll be giving us links of people who want to follow him. I follow him, and he gives excellent advice that I try to incorporate into my life. He's the chief of family medicine at Cambridge Memorial, as I said, and the lead physician at Grandview. And Dr. Maheshwari is also a stand-up comedian. I've seen him perform at Yuck Yucks locally, but he's performed in New York, in Washington, Toronto, Hamilton, as well as the clubs in Kitchener. And because of both his humor and his passion for healthcare, exercise, and his stand-up routines, he's appeared on many television channels, CP24, on CBS, 91.5 The Beat, and he's been featured in various newspapers, including the New York Post, American Medical News, and as well as our local Waterloo Record and Cambridge Times. So we have a celebrity among us who will be providing us some key insights and some humor and leading us on our start of the day. With great pleasure, I invite Dr. Maheshwari, please, to come up.
Good morning. This is a great turnout here. I'm a lot shorter than everyone else. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So I'm going to be the most underdressed doctor here, and I've done it on purpose because exercise, I think, is extremely important as medicine. How many people here follow me on Twitter or Facebook? So I'm not world famous like I thought yet. But after today, I hope that you will, because I put out daily stuff. I mean, this is the thing I am most passionate about. Exercise as medicine. I hope that you, after this talk, that you follow me there. I try to put out something interesting every day about it. The reason I'm here to speak, and I thank Dr. Pandy for asking me to speak here today, is because we all see, as physicians, we all see a lot of patients that have a lot of what we call lifestyle-induced diseases. And exercise is one of the best ways to combat these diseases. And today, hopefully, I'll convince everybody. It looks like everybody here already exercises. If you're out here for a Heart Health Day, I know a lot of you have been through his cardiac program. It seems like you already exercise, but hopefully this will inspire you to exercise some more. So, let's see if I can. There we go. This is one of my favorite comics. I'm prescribing exercise. Think of it as a stress pill that takes 30 minutes to swallow. But I think it's a lot more than that. I think that exercise helps with a lot more than just stress. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a whole list, which is not complete by any stretch of the imagination, but there we go. It helps with all of these conditions. We know it helps to prevent cancer. We know it helps with arthritis. We know it helps with anxiety, depression, of course, heart disease. It is vital, but we just don't do enough. So if it were a drug, I think that it would be worth about $1 trillion. Anybody know who this guy is? Yeah, Mike Myers from, what was that? Austin Powers. So in that movie, he was talking about $1 million. I think exercise, if a pharmacy company could bottle this or put this in a pill, it would be worth at least $1 trillion for the number of things that it does for you, the number of ways to improve your health. So let me go into a little bit about who my inspiration for all of this is. Besides my patients, my biggest inspiration is my dad, who hopefully you can tell is the one on the right and not the one on the left. My father, when I was growing up, my father, very, very strict man, whenever he saw me laughing or giggling, he would say, "Anil, why are you always doing ha ha he he? I want you to study, I want you to become a doctor." And it worked, because I did become a doctor, but he was always so serious. And one of the things the other thing that about him that's always been there is he cannot sit still. From as far back as I can remember, he exercises twice a day, 30 minutes twice a day, and he can't, you'll be talking to him and he'll be doing calf raises while he's talking to you. You could have a world leader over at home. You could have Justin Trudeau over for dinner, and in the middle of the dinner, he would probably get up and do squats because he just cannot sit still. Now, some people might call this attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I prefer to call it a love of exercise, and it has worked for him incredibly well. He has 3 brothers and sisters. Every single one of them have diabetes and is way overweight. He's the only one who exercises every day, and I think that has helped him to avoid a lot of the problems that his other brothers and sisters have. And so I know that that's in my genes, and so I'm very passionate about avoiding diabetes and high blood pressure and all that, and so exercise is important to me as well. In my head, I always hear his voice going, "Just do it. Whenever I get lazy, just do it. You have to do it." He is my inspiration. But it's, exercise as medicine is gathering a lot of momentum. Dr. Robert Salas, who's a doctor out in California, is the lead of the Exercise is Medicine. There's actually an organization in the United States. And he thinks that exercise should actually be a vital sign in the doctor's office. When you go to the doctor, you will have, we take a lot of different things. We take your blood pressure, your height, your weight. But he thinks that we should also be asking, how much exercise do you get in a week? It's so important that it should actually be a vital sign, one of the key questions that we ask you on every visit. And I'm not sure I disagree with him. Sorry, I forgot the slide. I advanced it on mine, but not on yours. So that's Dr. Robert Salas. And this drives home the point again. There are more and more doctors that now are saying exercise, exercise, exercise. But you know what? Sometimes it's not seen as gimmicky enough. Exercise, that's boring. But the truth is, it's highly effective. It's just not sexy enough for some people. So today I want to go over a couple of the types of exercise. There's basically 3 main types. Activity, what you're doing all day long. Aerobic exercise, when you take time out to go run, go cycle, go do something that makes you sweat and breathe deeply. And then there's muscle building exercise, which should be done on a fairly regular basis as well. So, how many people have seen this? How many people who know who Dr. Mike Evans is? Anybody? Nobody. One, 2 people. Okay. Dr. Mike Evans is a family doctor from University of Toronto who is huge on social media. He has this video on YouTube called 23 and a half hours. I would urge you to take a look at it. It's got almost 5 million views, and it's a doctor talking about exercise. So you can imagine that's not it's not one of the most exciting things on YouTube, but to have 5 million views means that it's very, very popular. And basically he talks about those 30 minutes a day that we should be exercising and why it's very important. So I would urge you to take a look at that. Let's talk about activity first. How many people have seen this? Anybody? Yeah, a few people. Sitting is the new smoking. It might be a little bit overdone, but I think it's pretty accurate. A lot of us spend way too much time sitting, and there's a lot of data now coming out that says that sitting is really, really dangerous. It does a lot of bad things to you. There's even data that shows that if you go out for a 30-minute exercise session in the morning and then sit for 12 hours after that, you kind of lost the benefits of the 30 minutes of exercise in the morning. So I'll go into a little more detail about why sitting breaking up your sitting is so important. Here's my first attempt at making my own comic, and I warn you, I am not an artist. So my Grim Reaper looks like he's from Star Wars. But basically, this is what exercise does. It separates you from the Grim Reaper. It adds years to your life. Later on, I'll be showing a study that shows that it can add almost 2 years to 7 years to your life, if at 30 minutes a day, basically. Let's see. Okay. So the handle on your recliner does not qualify as an exercise machine. I hope there was no confusion about that. So it's very, very important. I love this. Randy Glassbergen is an awesome comic. An awesome author of comics and cartoons, I guess. And this is the kind of stuff I put up on social media to kind of keep people interested. So we need to change from a culture of constantly sitting, because with screens and everything that we do, desk work and everything, back to a culture of constant movement. I mean, centuries ago, we were all farmers and hunters. We had to work very hard to get food. And now, you can't, in this room, I see food over there. There's food in the hallway. At home, you probably have food everywhere. You go anywhere, you go to a mall, you can't turn around without seeing food. But there's not that much movement everywhere. We need to make movement very important. Again, 30 minutes every day is a good start, but constant movement is important, like kids do. This is my daughter. I think this was a breakfast. We went out for breakfast one day, and she couldn't sit still. She was dancing at breakfast. Kids are great at that, but what do we do to them? We make them sit still. Sitting still is probably important at times, but I think we do a little bit too much sitting still. This is a book by Dr. James Levine. He's an endocrinologist from the Mayo Clinic. And he has this book called Get Up, Why Your Chair is Killing You and What You Can Do About It. So just showing you how this is gaining momentum, the term sitting disease. This is kind of a nice comic. Remember when he used to carry, and I can never say this word, scythe? Scythe? Scythe. That's because I grew up Indian. That's a word that never came up. All right. And here's why sitting's bad. How many people here, if you're a patient of Dr. Pandy's, I know you've probably had this test. How many people have had the 2-hour the glucose tolerance test? That's the one where you go to the lab, they take your fasting, they take your blood, then they give you that really sweet drink, and you have to sit for 2 hours, and they take your blood again. So how many people have had that test? Yeah, quite a large number of you. If that test is done correctly, and correctly means, and I have to remind patients often, the correct way to do that test is to have that drink and then come to as close to not moving as possible. So you need to sit for 2 hours. The reason is really bad things start to happen in your body when you sit. And we want to see what happens. We're trying to replicate what happens if you were to have a big meal and then sit down to watch a movie afterwards, or sit down on your computer screen for a couple hours. What's happening inside your body? And so, how many people have had a high 2-hour sugar reading that are willing to admit it? A few of you. It's a very common problem, actually. If we test it often enough, we see a lot of people's sugars start to creep up at the 2-hour mark. And the reason that we don't want you to move for those 2 hours is every time you use your muscles, you're dropping your sugar. You're also dropping your blood pressure, by the way, and your cholesterol every time you're moving. When you sit for 2 hours, all three of those things start to go up. And the longer you sit during the day, as seen on this graph, if you sit more than 12 hours a day, some people say that your risk of dying prematurely goes up to as much as if you were smoking. That's pretty startling. So the important thing is it starts really early, within the first 2 hours. So it's very important to break up your sitting. And by the way, if anybody feels the need to stand during my lecture, I will not be offended. You may stand. So a couple of things that I tell my patients, for people who are working at a desk job, and are trapped at their desk for hours and hours a day, you think, oh my God, it's going to kill me. Well, there's a few things you can do to counteract it, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to make huge changes. Small changes are good. For example, if you work in a 2-story building and you don't have any problems with your knees or anything like that, I tell people, every hour, at least every hour, try to get up and walk up and down at least 1 flight of stairs. Because think about the number of muscles you're activating in that 1 minute it takes you to go up and down the stairs and walk back and forth to your desk. It breaks up these bad things happening in your body, basically. If you don't have stairs or if you have issues with joints, even just walking around the longest route in the office is a great idea. If you're at home and you're at a desk most of the time, this is a good idea for you as well. Anything is better than nothing. So if you're sitting there going, yeah, but I have joint issues, I can't really go up and down the stairs, my legs hurt, walking is fine. Any kind of activity is fine. Work within what you have. And of course, before doing any intense activity, clear it with somebody like Dr. Pandy or your family doctor to make sure you're okay to do that. But usually, stair climbing and walking, we're all doing that on a regular basis anyway, so you should be fine to do that. All right. So now they've even started incorporating this into conferences. This is a conference that I went to in Montreal, a family medicine conference, and they broke up the talks with exercise breaks, sort of like the exercise break you did here this morning. It's now made its way into mainstream medical conferences. This is something I recommend if you want to do it as a standing desk. We're all doing sitting desks. This is a standing desk. To the left is my first attempt at a standing desk. That's a footstool that I put my computer monitor on, and then books to elevate everything else. This is the first time I've used those books in years. And I'm not saying I'm hopelessly out of date. I'm saying that books are hopelessly out of date. Nobody looks at books anymore. Everything is online. If you want the current information, you go online. And I'm always amused when patients bash doctors for going online during a visit. If you want a doctor to be the most current, going online is the best way. In the old days, we just went to the back room and looked in a book. You just didn't see us doing it. Now, if we need the most current information, we go online. And so you should work with your doctor. If he's going on Google to look something up, usually it's a medical site, I would encourage that. They're getting the most up-to-date information. So to the right is my current standing desk. It's called a VeriDesk, and it goes up and down. It's got a handle. I can raise it up and down. So because standing all day can be a little bit tiring, but that's one of the options available to break up your sitting. I remember when I was young, I was watching a documentary on, I used to live in the States, on PBS, which is the equivalent of TVO here. And it was talking about this father, this was in the 80s, that had set up his TV at home so nobody could watch TV unless they were pedaling a bike. And I remember as a teenager, I didn't think that was a very good idea. I thought that was a horrible idea. But now, looking back on it, the guy was brilliant. Right now, we spend so much time in front of TVs, in front of computers, that imagine if we actually were doing something active while we were on this. While we were watching TV, if we were walking on a treadmill or we were pedaling a bike, doing something, we would be a lot thinner, because it's usually you don't want to eat while you're on a treadmill, and you're, like I said, deactivating the hormones that do bad things. It would just be a completely different world if all of our TVs and screen time were actually hooked up to power sources that would not go on unless we were doing something active. Something to think about. So there's all sorts of products coming out. This is an article, I think, was it the National Post, about exercising in your office at your desk. I've never tried one of these. It looks uncomfortable to me. I think I would hit my knees on my desk. But they are out there. There's treadmill desks and bike desks. One of the easiest steps that I found is, that picture to the left is my treadmill desk that I created at home. All it is a regular treadmill. I lucked out in that both my handrails are parallel to the ground, And so I took a shelf and just threw it on top of those two handrails. It's very sturdy. And so there's my computer and my cup of coffee every morning. And so in the morning when I'm catching up on emails or surfing the internet, I'm walking at 1 to 2 miles per hour. I don't even realize the time going by. Half an hour, 45 minutes, even an hour sometimes go by. I don't feel like I've worked out, but yet I've done something that is productive rather than I would have spent that same 30 to 60 minutes sitting at my kitchen table on the laptop. So it's one of the easiest ways to get active, I think. And there are bike desks available as well, and there's expensive models that go up and down with an electric motor, and there's the homemade models like I've made. So you can always find a way if you have the will. So how many people here would say that they get 30 minutes of exercise a day? Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. There are a lot of people that don't, and I have to be honest. I struggle to get it every single day, even get it 5 days a week. I probably talk about exercise as medicine as much for myself as I do for everybody else. I'm not one of those people that is, those annoying people that just love exercise. I'm not one of them. Sometimes I have to work at it, and sometimes I have to have my dad's little voice in my head going, just do it, come on, do it, don't be lazy. Sometimes I have to do that, I'll be honest. But we all need that. We all need motivation. Here's one of the things I find most motivating. This is something I found and posted recently. Remember this, someone busier than you is working out right now. And when you put it that, because one of the excuses that we make for ourselves is, I'm too busy to exercise today. Well, world leaders are doing it. President Obama, Prime Minister Trudeau, they find the time to exercise. If you make it a priority, it can be done. It's just that sometimes, it's easy to say I don't have the time and not make it a priority. And I'm hoping that after today's talks, more of you will make it a priority. And I'm looking forward to hearing the other talks too, to keep motivated here. I love this. I don't have time is the grown-up version of the dog ate my homework. If you think about it, it's true. Let's see. All right, this is my second attempt at a cartoon or a comic. So, everybody would like to age in the way, the top line. You kind of, you stay healthy all the way till the end of your life, and then you die of natural causes. That's the ideal way to die. But, unfortunately, due to lifestyle issues, a lot of us go down that second route. Without exercise, what ends up happening is we get more and more problems: heart disease, diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we don't enjoy our golden years as much as if you do with exercise. And it's never too late to start either. Exercise helps with arthritis, a lot of the muscle aches, and all of that kind of stuff that you're facing as you get older. And it helps with balance issues. We're going to go through in the future. It helps with avoiding dementia, which I know is a huge concern. The longer we live, the more that's out there, but exercise is one of the ways to kind of hopefully hold off on that. So let's talk a little bit now about the two kinds of aerobic exercise. This is Dr. Rebecca Shoup from Grandview giving me CPR. Well, not really. We were hamming it up, but this is after a race. We happen to like running. It's not for everybody, but that's an endurance type of activity. HIIT is, anybody know what that is? Yeah, some people do. So it's high-intensity interval training. So there's a lot of, and I know Dr. Pandy does a lot of research on this, on the difference, how does high-intensity activity interval training differ from regular running in terms of how does it improve your health? So in case you don't know what HIIT is, it's basically, it's sort of like you do something intensely for a minute, 30 seconds, a minute, 90 seconds, whatever the timeline is, and then you slow down for 1 minute to 3, 4, 5 minutes. So basically, you're just doing short bursts of intense activity. And intense is a relative term. Like if your regular exercise is walking, then your intense activity might be brisk walking, raising your heart rate up, really moving faster, but almost at an uncomfortable pace, but only for a very short period to kind of give you the benefits of breathing harder, getting your heart pumping faster. And studies have found, as long as your doctor clears you to do it, it's a great way to, it seems to do more to lower hemoglobin A1C levels, which is your diabetes levels, blood pressure levels, cholesterol levels. There's a lot of data coming out that it's very, very beneficial, more beneficial than, let's say, just going out for a jog, which is moderate sustained activity, as you would call it. I love cartoons, so I'm going to keep giving you a couple more. This is the awkward Yeti. So there's a pair of lungs inside a rib saying, "Let us go." And the other one's like, "You monster, you said this cage was to protect us." And I love the extra part of the heart saying, "I taste blood." Oh, and of course, this is what happens when I run. This is when we run, our body sometimes wants us to stop. But we know it's good for us. Our brain knows it's good for us. And after a while, we can train our lungs and heart to like it. We need to do more of it. Again, can't say that enough. Studies. I won't get too much into the studies, but this is the study that I was talking about that shows that being active can lead to an increase of 1.8 years to 7.2 years to your life it can add on. So we're just talking about adding on 30 minutes of activity a day if you're not doing it. This is a study that showed in coronary artery disease, high interval training versus moderate intensity training, and again showed a lot of benefits to both and maybe some additional benefits to high interval training. But anybody who's a heart patient, again, you should probably get this cleared from your heart doctor and or family doctor. This is another study in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, high intensity interval training. This one showed basically that it increases your cardiorespiratory fitness by more than double over people who are doing moderate intensive continuous training all the time. But I would say this, there's a lot of data that shows one kind of exercise is better than another kind of exercise. I would say be careful with all of it. Mix it up, do all the different kinds of exercise, and this way you're getting the benefits of everything. Sorry, I forgot to forward. These were the studies. Okay, so those are some of the reasons to do aerobic exercise. The other big one is muscle building exercise. So how many people have been told that, I'm going to talk about osteoporosis for a second. How many people have been told to take calcium and or vitamin D to prevent bone loss? A lot of people. How many people have been told to do weight-bearing exercise to prevent bone loss? Almost the same amount. Would it surprise you to know that calcium and vitamin D are coming under fire for what they do actually for osteoporosis? As a matter of fact, too much calcium might have a negative effect on heart disease. So we usually don't recommend the amount of calcium we used to recommend, which used to be 1,500 milligrams in tablets every day. We don't recommend that anymore. It's usually 500 at the most in a tablet form, and the rest you should get naturally. We found that it doesn't really prevent osteoporosis as much as we thought. As a matter of fact, if you look at the studies, Japan and other countries that don't have a lot of calcium, they don't have the osteoporosis rates that we do. So muscle building is more important than the vitamin D and calcium. Are we doing all right on time, Shaker? We're good? Okay. All right, so if you're going to look for one fountain of youth, everybody's looking for the fountain of youth, muscle building could be it. And the reason I say that is this graph here. If you look at this, the top line is if you do muscle building activity, and the bottom line is if you do no muscle building activity. And you can see as you age, it helps you to age more gracefully, to have less falls, to be able to do more things for longer during your life. It's hugely important. It helps with arthritis, back pain, bone loss like I talked about, muscle loss, varicose veins, helps with a lot of things. This is a poster I have up in my room, taken with a special lens. That is me, and that's my Movember mustache from a few years ago. When I say I talk about exercise as medicine 24/7, I'm not kidding. This is up in my office, and for patients, to remind patients to exercise, and to remind me, quite honestly. Okay, so it even makes kids smarter. I won't get into that too much here, but there's studies that show that it improves your concentration and memory. There's schools that have put bikes into their classrooms, including St. Teresa's in Kitchener has bikes. My friend Brian Sinti is the principal there, and he was telling me about that. I find that fascinating. We know that it helps prevent dementia. I won't go into all the studies on that, but trust me, exercise helps you from losing your memory. We've known exercise is important for centuries and centuries. That you've all heard of the Hippocratic Oath. Hippocrates also said walking is man's best medicine. And culturally, we see around the world everybody walks after dinner, after meals. It's been for centuries. People used to go for walks. We're doing less and less of that, unfortunately. We need to do more and more of that. Exercise helps you to live longer. This is somebody I ran across in a walk in Udaipur, India, a trip I did with my dad. This is 5 o'clock in the morning. This gentleman has been walking every morning for decades and decades. He says it's what keeps him healthy. Despite all of this evidence, this is how most of us feel about exercise. It doesn't feel good, right? So we got to find a way to make it feel good. So, and this is another poster I have in my office with the same Movember mustache and a regular, guilt will only take us so far. I can't guilt anybody into working out, including myself. But that's an important question. What do you mean you're not exercising? We should all be exercising. And so, another cartoon, 2 lungs on the ground, a heart on the ground, and the brain saying, we haven't even started exercising yet, and the lungs are saying, I see a light, should I go into the light? I'm going into the light. The other one saying, I'll give this note to my mother. And the heart is saying, yeah, but we parked pretty far away, so sometimes we don't want to exercise, but we got to find ways to make it fun. So if you like doing certain sports, that's one way of doing it. Some resources I can give you to make it fun. This is a great website, activecambridge.ca. They have all the activities in our area listed, and they even have a place where you can enter in all your, you take a questionnaire basically to say, what do you like doing? And it tells you what activities you might think of, that you might want to do, activities you wouldn't have thought of. So it's worth taking a look at activecambridge.ca. The other place is the Cambridge official website, cambridge.ca. You can find out information on all the walking trails and all the various parks and everything in our area. The main thing we got to do, the easiest way to fit in exercise, I think, is screen time again. Whenever you're watching TV, whenever you're on a computer, if you're on a treadmill or you're on an exercise bike, time goes by so fast when you're watching something or doing something on the internet. It's an easy way to get in activity. And again, it has to be very slow when you're on the treadmill desk. It's only 1 to 2 miles per hour, but it's something, and something is better than nothing. Gamification. This is a picture I took of my nephew in India. This is an actual wheel that he got on. 2 seconds after this picture, he fell and cracked open his chin. So I would not recommend this as a form of exercise, but there are other ways to have fun. There's on our smartphones nowadays, there's so many apps. There's one called Zombie Run, where you're chased by a zombie virtually to keep you motivated to run. There's communities that you can join. There's maps you can create where you can see how far across the country you've run. It adds up all your runs or walks through time, and you can see over time how far across the country you've run. There's different ways of making it fun. So, another way that I love is going to a new city. I love renting those bikes that are now in every city. My favorite city that I ever did it in is Montreal. They have separate bike paths, so you're not worried about getting hit by a car. But it's a great way of seeing cities. Enjoying the great outdoors is another great way of having fun. And we've got so many trails here in Cambridge. This is a map of all our trails. You can find this on cambridge.ca. It's an interactive map. You can also find it on activecambridge.ca. Biking places. This is a picture, I think, because of this exercise and medicine fascination that I have. I think this was the Waterloo record a few years ago. They made me put the stethoscope on. I did not want to, just for the record. And my wife said, "What are you trying to do? Pick up women?" Like hello, baby, I'm a doctor. So anyway, I do bike to work occasionally. It's got to be the perfect temperature, though, because I don't want to have to come. I only have a short ride. It's about 2.5 kilometers. I don't want to have to come in and shower. Meetings. This is my executive director, Jeff Pohl, and I, our weekly meetings. Sometimes we'll do this in the winter. We'll get on some exercise equipment. Not as often as I would like, but we're talking. We're getting our exercise in. It's easy. During the summers, we sometimes will go out for walks outside when we have to have our meetings. But any way to fit it in, basically. It's always such a challenge to fit it in, so these are just some ideas to get you thinking. Making it social. This is my nephew. I don't know what he's doing. This was one of our family vacations. But other ways to make it social are joining exercise classes, meeting someone at the gym. If you meet someone at the gym, you're much more likely to make that trip to the gym if you know somebody's waiting for you. So joining a running or biking club. This is one of my favorite ways to get active is setting a goal. For you type A personalities out there, setting a goal with a deadline. Like if I know, like for example, tomorrow there's that run, actually I think I'm wearing a t-shirt from a few years ago, the Cambridge Mill Run is tomorrow. If I know a run is coming up and I've signed up for it, I don't want to make a fool out of myself, so I'm going to train for it. And so it keeps me thinking about exercise. It keeps exercise at the top of mind. Finally, this is a summary slide for probably the whole talk. The bottom line is if you're sedentary, if you're sitting still, bad things happen. If you exercise, good things happen. The exercise counteracts the time that you're sitting still. And I will say that this is my final cartoon. What fits your busy schedule better, exercising an hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? So take-home messages, avoid sitting disease. The more activity, the better. The greater the variety, the better. Look for ways to have fun. And look for the two-for-ones, where you're doing something else while you're exercising or being active. For example, the treadmill exercise bike stepper with screen time, or meetings, walking meetings, or biking to locations, or standing treadmill desks. And the most important reason of all to exercise, monkey see, monkey do. Parents exercise, kids do too. Our kids are watching everything we do. The odds of them exercising go way up if they see us exercising. If they don't, I see it all the time in my practice. Families all tend to look the same. So if there's an inactive mother and father coming in, the kids are usually inactive. And if there's an active mother and father, much more likely that the kids are going to be active. Keep that in mind. That's my daughter doing sit-ups with my wife many years ago. So, like I said, follow me on social media if you want daily inspiration. I try to put something out there every day for myself and for everybody else. Thank you very much. We have time for questions?
Okay. Perfect. I don't want feedback. Thank you, Dr. Maheshwari. Big round of applause for Dr. Maheshwari. Thank you. Thank you so much, my friend. We've got some time for questions. Anil, can you hang on for a couple of questions? Speaking of kids do what families do, I've got my two sons walking around with mics. If anybody has a question for Dr. Maheshwari, they also have cue cards that you can write on, and there are pens out there if anybody didn't bring a pen at the booths. I know some people have already started handing in some questions, so any other questions, you can write on those cue cards or just wave your hand and one of the guys will come around and bring a mic to you. But while we're getting that set up, Anil, I've got a few questions that had come in already. So the first question, Anil, just trying to read. Okay, can you stack up exercise and do 2-3 hours once a week if you can't sort of fit in 20 minutes, a half hour every day? And what are your thoughts about sort of clumping it together if you just have a Saturday that you can work out all day?
That's a great question. I would say that if you absolutely cannot exercise 6 days a week and you get in exercise at least 1 day a week, that's 2 to 3 hours, that's better than getting in no exercise. But quite honestly, just like we showed with the sitting studies, it's probably better to do a little bit each day, or not probably, it is better to do a little bit each day because it's sort of like taking a pill. Exercise really is like taking a pill. Pills usually the effects only last about 24 hours. Exercise, generally, the effects wear out after 24 hours. But if your options are no exercise versus exercising once a week, go for it.
I lost my mic here, so I'm going to just use this mic. So remember, anybody, just wave your hands if you have any questions for Dr. Maheshwari, or the kids can give you the cards. Next question: do different age groups need different amounts of exercise, or should do they need to exercise less, more as we age? What's your thoughts about that?
That's interesting. My take on that would be everybody needs to exercise a lot more, but in terms of the amount, I would say probably as we get older, we probably need to exercise more than ever before to prevent a lot of the same things that were, when we were young, we had youth on our side. You could do practically nothing and your body was lean and trim, and you had muscle mass and you had everything. But the older we get, I think the more we need to exercise, actually.
Along the same theme, a couple of questions that are actually very similar. How about gender? Do men and women, is there differences in the amount of exercise that men need or women need? And do the physiology of men or women differ in terms of their response to exercise? Do men get a better response because we have more muscle mass, or what are your thoughts about gender differences?
Oh, this is a favorite topic with my patients. Specifically with more to do with exercise and weight loss. Women get very upset because men, they exercise a little bit and they start to lose weight. And it's harder for women to lose weight because we have more muscle mass. You burn more calories. But in general, I would say you could do the same amount. For the health benefits, the same amount of exercise is probably beneficial.
That's I'm going to go to the mic in a second, but that's an interesting question. I remember about 4 or 5 years ago, we at the hospital, we have a cardiovascular technologist. She's a petite young woman. She's at most this high. And, so obviously her leg length is much smaller than my leg length, right? And I think I'm fairly active. So we had this competition. I said, you know what? I bet you I can go on a treadmill longer than you can because, and not because I was in better shape, but mostly because I thought, you know what? I've got a longer leg length, so I'll have to step less and I'll be doing less work. But man, she went like 25 minutes. I was done at about 12 at the incline and speed. Right. So the gender thing is actually very interesting. I think there's going to be some interesting information as that comes along. We have a question down here at the mic. If we can make that mic active.
When you have multiple issues, is it best to exercise always where there is supervision?
With medical problems, I guess.
With medical supervision, yeah, that's, for some people, I would say that's very important, but that's probably a conversation to have with your doctor to see if you're cleared to exercise on your own. Usually, if you haven't exercised before, I think it's a great idea to start out with medical supervision. Like I know the heart program that Dr. Pandy runs, cardiac rehab, is super important after like a heart event or anything like that. And once you've figured out what your level of exercise is and what you're comfortable doing and what doesn't give you any problems, then you can probably step out on your own. But again, let your doctor tell you if it's okay. Most people, it turns out to be okay. And remember, walking, for most people that are able to do walking, we're walking all the time anyway, so doing more walking is usually okay at a moderate pace. Maybe my lawyers would tell me different, or malpractice lawyers might tell me different and say, no, you should tell everybody to get clearance on everything. But I think it's safe for us to tell you you can walk because we're doing it anyway. But if you're doing more intense activity and you've had medical issues, it's probably a good idea to talk to your doctor and then maybe start off with that kind of program.
So along that theme of type and how much, can you do too much exercise?
Yes. The short answer would be yes, you can. The longer answer is most of us are never going to reach that level.
Okay, we're going to need to move on, but any other questions from the audience? We'll take a couple more. How does the 10,000 steps per day, Anil, how does that compare to doing a half hour per day of exercise in a more structured manner, in your opinion?
Yeah, the 10,000 steps a day is an interesting concept that recently, I've just started noticing people are starting to back off on that. 10,000 is a lot. It's 4 to 5 miles or 6 to 8 kilometers of walking a day. It's hard to achieve for a lot of people. It takes more than an hour a day for most, probably closer to an hour and a half almost a day for most people. Now, of course, you're incorporating, it's not just separated an hour and a half walk, you're also, all day long, you're getting your steps in. So there are some people saying now 7,500 might be a good target. Nobody can find out who came up with the original 10,000 number. It's an interesting number, but I would say that I like the concept of a pedometer. I have one of these iWatches that tracks my activity all the time. I love to see how many steps I've done. It's good feedback to have, but if you achieve 10,000 or don't achieve 10,000, just remember, the more activity you have, the better. You don't have to achieve 10,000 every day. You don't have to feel like a failure if you haven't reached it. Anything you do is good, and half an hour of dedicated exercise a day, I think, is very important.
I couldn't agree more. I think, and part of what we always say is, always try to challenge yourself to do just that a little bit more. So if you're not at 10,000 step, you're not there yet, or you have joint issues that limit you from that. If you don't want to, as we become more fit, we have to do more. And I think that's certainly part of it, is to always challenge yourself, not to extremes and not to injure yourself, but always make sure that you're motivating yourself to just do that little bit more. So a couple more minutes each day, just to try to rev that up. We're going to take a couple of last questions, and I know there's a lot of questions. We'll try to do them again near the end. We're going to have a group discussion.
You can send them to me. If you've got questions afterwards we haven't addressed, send them to me on social media. I'm happy to answer them.
Can lost bone density be rebuilt with the right type of exercise as opposed to going on medications?
Yes, to a certain degree it can. The reason I showed that picture of the astronauts is within days of being out in space, they start losing bone and muscle mass. When they come back from space, they have osteoporosis. I mean, these are young, healthy individuals that did not have osteoporosis before, but because they're doing 1/7 of the work, there's 1/7 of the gravity in space compared to Earth, there's no resistance for them, so everything starts to shrink. Anything that shrinks your muscles, you can think of decreasing the density in your bones. Anything that builds muscle is going to improve your bone density. So to a certain degree, you can build your bone mass back up, but it takes a lot of effort, a lot of muscle building activity. It depends on how severe your bone loss is. You may still need medications, but even if you're doing medications, I think the exercise part is vital. It's the one thing that exercise does build bone. Absolutely. Weight-bearing exercise does build bone, but it's got to be done in large quantities.
I would completely agree. And I think part of it is also, from my perspective, is, lifestyle is not a competition to medications, right? So, for example, we really encourage our diabetics to be on an appropriate diabetic diet, to exercise, but that doesn't mean that the diet or exercise is competing with their insulin requirement or their medications, or, the cholesterol medications are not competing with. So, we win, and, I'll be addressing this a little bit at the end of my talk, is, if 90% of heart disease is preventable, it's not preventable just because of one activity. It's really the whole gamut of doing all the right things. And certainly for some people that includes medications, and medications are not in competition with exercise or with lifestyle. You really need to try to be very holistic and comprehensive about trying to address that. And if you have severe bone loss, you very well might need to be on medications to ensure that you don't end up with hip fractures and things like that.
I couldn't agree with that more.
But the more you do, the more you win, I think.
Yeah, you have to be careful. You don't want to, I understand the idea that the less medication, the better. And believe me, if you catch things early enough, that's entirely possible. But if things are late enough, then exercise and activity on top of the medications is important.
And actually, one of the studies that I'll be addressing near the end really looks at that. When they looked and piecemealed it out and say, you know what, if people just did medications, how much benefit did they get? Or if they just did exercise, or if they just did diet. And when you actually look at that, the real big, robust benefits that you get is when you do all of that, and it's really not a competition between exercise and diet or smoking cessation and diet. You got to quit the smoking, you got to do the diet, and you got to exercise, but some people still need the medication. So it's really, I think, being holistic about that.
Absolutely.
We're going to take one last question. I know there's a lot of questions. Dr. Maheshwari did a phenomenal job. Thank you so much, Anil. Now, last question. I've thought about this, and why do you think sitting is so bad compared to other postures like standing or even lying down? There are some studies that suggest that lying down might be a better posture than sitting. What is it about sitting that affects our metabolism, and why is sitting impacting our health more than other types of postures?
I hadn't heard about the lying down perhaps being worse, but metabolically speaking, sitting definitely uses less calories, uses less muscles than standing or walking or any of the other things. So that part makes sense. Posture, of course, plays a part in certain things. When you're lying down, at least you don't have bad posture. Sitting in front of a screen or with a laptop, you could have really bad posture. So that can also contribute to things. But I think, for me, the main thing is, basically, it's all along a spectrum. So lying down, then sitting, then standing, then walking, and then doing more weight-bearing weightlifting and or running or biking. These are all along a spectrum, and the more active you are, the better. The more calories you burn, the better.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So thank you so much, Anil. Will you be able to stay for a little bit of questions at the break? Thank you so much, guys. We'll have more questions. We'll have more time with Dr. Maheshwari afterwards.